The Hog Sty is brought to you by TicketClub.com, your one-stop shop for live events nationwide. Whether you're looking for game, theater, or live performance tickets, don't sweat it. TicketClub.com has you covered. So make sure you're going there for all your live entertainment needs, and make sure you're clicking over to them from the banner at the top of thehogsty.com. Welcome to the Hog Sty, DC's unofficial leading source for all things Redskins in the NFL, sent from the heavens, assembled in a lab, and brought to you by TicketClub.com. My name's Sean Conte. I got Steve Thomas, Alex Zeese, and Jamal Forrest here on the show. Before we start with our formal agenda, guys, how the heck are y'all doing on this Saturday?
I don't know where this was sent from, but I'm 99% sure it wasn't heaven.
Listen, I am straight from heaven, man. Okay.
Yeah, I'm about to say, Steve, I'm right there with you, buddy.
Maybe Alex came from the other direction. That's entirely possible given his history and background.
I'm right there with you. Yeah. So 2 and 2 here on this show. So how you guys doing? Anything fun happening in your lives? We got a couple fun things to talk about today. We got an awesome interview, but what's going on in your lives?
I think I'm addicted to grilling.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, so now I'm going to grill today. Today is Saturday, by the way, for everybody listening. I think I'm going to grill today for sure. But we have a grill at our crib, but we bought a smaller one, so it's more personal. It's like an 18-inch grill or something like that. So it's a little bit more personal and it's easier. You know, when you want to just fire it up for a little bit, you don't have to worry about the big one and having to fit all types of food on that thing. So now I got something a little bit more personal. This is my third time this week.
So you're using what, an 18-inch kettle kind of thing?
Yeah, kettle. Absolutely.
Okay.
18-inch.
You want to talk about wood chips? Because I can talk to you about wood chips.
Bore the audience to death. My God.
I'm trying to bore you.
You've already bored me. You already bored me.
It's a perfect moment to talk about the person who doesn't like to use anything other than a microwave. Like that's why this is boring.
Listen, it's fast, it's efficient. You don't have to clean anything. You can have a meal.
It makes all your food taste like rubber and garbage.
It's totally fine. This is you just being absurd, Alex.
This is just me liking my food to taste good and to have good mouthfeel.
There's literally nothing that should not be microwaved.
Look, let's ask somebody who didn't participate in this conversation before. Sean, how do you if you had the proper amount of time to do either or? Would you prefer to fix your food in either the oven or a grill, or would you just put it in the microwave?
Yeah, and the original debate was reheating pizza.
Yeah, reheating
pizza. Let's put that in there too, which you would not do in a grill.
The answer's the same either way. You can't just nuke everything with the microwave, Steve. It's nice and crisp and delicious if you use the oven. Steve, your culinary tastes are the worst way to start this show.
See, you're making a mistake in saying you can't. I can and I do. Okay.
And you do, but doesn't it get soggy?
No, it doesn't. It's totally fine. No.
It gives you the great combination of a soggy inside and a rock hard outside.
That microwave hamburgers in the freezer.
That sounds disgusting. Now, and I would argue, if you look at our comment sections and the people who react to us on social media and Twitter and stuff, talking about grilling would probably be more popular than talking about the Redskins at times. So, if Jamal and I do a grilling hour,
the best seasonings, the rub.
Oh my God, you guys are boring me to tears.
Oh yeah.
Stop. Oh, good Lord.
Jamal, I can give you. There's a Penzi Spices has this thing called the 32nd or 33rd Street dry rub. Amazing on your pork and your chicken.
I'm literally beating my head against it.
Amazing.
33rd Street. I bought this chili lime dry rub. I think I'm gonna use it today.
Oh yeah. I'm with you.
We shouldn't have had this conversation before I had breakfast, guys. This is going to be a distraction for the show.
Just microwave it. Be
all right.
done.
Well,
it's so easy. I mean, it's over.
I make my chili on the smoker now. I'll throw that in too.
See, they're more fancy than I am, even Steve. So I'm somewhere
you don't have a backyard yet, Sean, so that doesn't help.
Have a grill. Do you have a grill?
But if he had the option, though, I'm sure he would.
I don't have a grill. I do have an oven that I'm going to use over the microwave 100% of the time. And if I really
listen, I had a house once.
I'll go grill.
that when I moved in, the owner's manual was in the oven, and when I left that house, the owner's manual was still in the oven. Okay? True story.
That's like, if anyone asks me about your personality, Steve, I'm going to tell them that story.
That's the truth.
That's the
That's
story.
God's honest truth.
That's amazing. Okay. Well, as you can tell, folks at home, it's a light news week. We have some fun topics to talk about. We also have an awesome interview, which we can jump into, in fact, now, unless y'all want to cue it up in any way. This is with Joe Marino of thedraftnetwork.com and of the Locked On Bills and Draft Dudes podcasts. And anything you guys want to say to cue this one up, or should we just jump right on
Let's just jump into it.
Yeah, jump right into it. I appreciate him joining us again. We have a multitasker of sorts. He's a senior draft analyst of the Draft Network, also a member of Football Writers Association of America and a co-host of his own show, Locked On Bills. We have Joe Marino on with us today. Joe, how are you doing today?
Hey, guys, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's a pleasure, man. So, if you don't mind, everybody doesn't know everybody, every guest and stuff like that. Also, and we know that the Draft Network is an up-and-coming of sorts, and so they're growing in popularity pretty fast. But if you don't mind, tell us a quick tidbit about yourself and how you ended up working in scouting players and growing such a fast fan base or good fan base as yourself.
Yeah, so I mean, football's always been a big part of my life. Having two brothers, my dad, it's just always a big part of what we did every single day, and so always wanted to work in it. And kind of took a free writing gig back in 2013, and really just kind of from that moment when I took myself serious as a writer, started to network and get to know more people and just more connections, and one thing leads to another, and you kind of have a core of people, a circle, and we were able to kind of link together and form the Draft Network, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to do and the resources available, and excited about where it's going. We have a pretty robust content calendar, 2 daily podcasts. We have the mock draft machine, which is a pretty cool mock draft simulator. You can build your own big boards. So we've just got a lot of different resources and information. So we, we're excited about what's to come, but really excited about what's happened so far.
So Joe, now correct me if I'm wrong, but the draft simulator is fairly new, correct? I think because I've noticed a lot of people, especially on my timeline, a lot of people have been posting their draft boards and like 1,000 at a time. It's like I can't even keep up with the new ones that they make, but I'm pretty sure it's fairly new, and it seems to be going really well.
Yeah, man. We launched it, I think it was February 25th or 26th, man. My mentions, and I love it. My mentions all day long are people sharing their mock drafts they put it down on the simulator. So it's fun. So many different teams to, and it's really cool because it's helped me learn more about what the fans think about their teams. And the fans, I mean, honestly, they know the needs and what football teams need to do. And I can't watch 16 games for every single team. I watch a lot, I'll say that. But, to really get that firsthand information and talk through it, I have a lot of really good discussions. So, yeah, it's going well. We launched it in February. Love that. I think the user interface is really good. And, you can click on all of the names and get our scouting reports on the players as you draft. And so I feel like it's been a really cool way for people to learn more about the prospects, at all portions of the draft. So, to be able to read, anywhere from 1 to 4 scouting reports on every single player. And then, it's you can also pick more than one team. So you can control the Redskins and the Raiders or, whatever, as many or as few teams as you want to do. I've been doing I host the Draft Dudes podcast. We're working through divisional mock drafts right now. And so we're doing one division at a time, and we're doing this dueling thing where we put it out to the fan vote to see whose draft they like better, mine or Kyle Kraft's. And I can pick all the teams in the division and work through them in one simulation. So really excited about the interface, the functionality, the way it turned out. The algorithm, I think, is really good. And, we got a lot of different plans to make it even better next year. So far, so good, but we're not content.
That's really good, man. And I appreciate it. The hustle is always appreciated. So as long as y'all keep grinding, I'm sure everything is going to work out for you all. And I'm actually glad that you brought up the mock drafts for each division. Have you guys actually touched the NFC East yet?
Not yet. We did. We've done two. It's going to be every day. So we've done two so far: NFC North and AFC South. So we'll probably kick. Within the next week, we'll have it done. So.
Okay. All right. So, if that's the case, then we'll go ahead and just actually speak on your. And now, I don't want to give everybody. I don't want to put your whole article out there, but you did come out with a final 2019 quarterback rankings and takes. If you don't mind, can you just speak on your overall synopsis of the article and where you felt, for example, your top two quarterbacks. Your best mid-round quarterbacks, et cetera, and what may be like a late-round quarterback that people may come to find out. Matter of fact, you mentioned Taysom Hill, the next Taysom Hill, or even Jordan Ta'amu. So what are your overall thoughts of this draft class and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think, obviously, when you talk about quarterbacks, you got to talk about who the best one in the class is. And for me, that's Kyler Murray, which is really surprising that, if you would have told me in December that my number one quarterback was going to be Kyler Murray, I would have told you were a liar. But the reality is, once we finally took the kid seriously as a football player, which took a long time, right? He held up that baseball front for a long time, and so I never took him seriously. And so I've got 300 plus players to watch, and I'm not going to sit there and spend time on a hypothetical. So when I finally got to his tape, and there's just a natural instinct about him, a natural feel for making plays, whether that's working off script, whether that's hitting his back foot and just ripping it, challenging the deep portions of the field. He's a tremendous athlete, and he can do some really exciting things with his legs. And, but I get there's some concerns, and I'm nervous about him. I'm real nervous about him. But I think if there's any quarterback that you're going to hitch your wagon to and say, hey, there's dynamic potential here, he can run an offense that's going to be tough as hell to defend, and give me Kyler. And obviously you have to embrace the 1 year wonder, the size, the fact that that he's going to have a big jump going from Oklahoma to the NFL. Like, all that stuff really matters. And he had the best offensive line in the world right at Oklahoma. And he went against crap defenses in the Big 12. They had great weapons. All that stuff matters. But if there's one that gives me a chance, I'm going to go ahead and hitch my wagon to Murray. Now there's this next little group, right? You got like the Dwayne Haskins, the Drew Lock, the Daniel Jones, those guys, I don't like them at all. It's not at all. That's not fair. I'm just not very high. I think Haskins, he's a pure pocket passer, big dude, hang in there and, pick you apart, but he's got mechanical issues and he doesn't necessarily have a good deep ball. And so if you're going to be a pocket passer, a statue man, you better be smooth and you better be able to dice up secondaries to all levels. And he's a pretty young guy that hasn't started a lot of games, so maybe there's some room for some growth. But I just feel like he's very plain. And then Drew Lock, who's actually my third quarterback, he's got his own issues with mechanics and progressions and handling pressure. But he's got a big arm and he actually does have deep accuracy, but he's less consistent in the rest of the areas. So. It's a mixed bag right there. And Daniel Jones, I wouldn't touch him to the third round. I think he's just totally overhyped right now with, the David Cutcliffe thing and that he's just to do it.
A lot of people agree.
Yeah, he's just really I don't get it. But that's kind of top tier. Jordan Ta'amu, if there's a developmental quarterback that I like, it's Jordan Ta'amu from Ole Miss. Man, he's good. In terms of his mechanics are clean, his accuracy's good, he's big, he can move. He's just a guy that if you watch that Ole Miss offense, man, it's so elementary. And he's got a big jump ahead of him. And there were even moments in an elementary offense where his field vision was real spotty. He just didn't necessarily understand coverage rotations as well as I would have hoped. So there's some things working there, but I think he's got legit developmental upside. You had mentioned the Taysom Hill thing. There's a couple quarterbacks here this year that I don't see much of a hope for them being actual starters or even reliable backups, but if you're going to get them in a versatile role like the Saints do with Taysom Hill, Easton Stick from North Dakota State is a guy that I think can do that. And even Trace McSorley from Penn State are a couple guys that I think can fill that role.
I like that.
Hey, Joe, it's Steve. I'd like to go back to Kyler Murray real fast because, he's most people's number ones. I've been a Kyler Murray skeptic from day one. I can't get past his height. To me, he's a guy who really sort of has to be in a Seattle-type offense where they keep him on the move, roll out. From an X's and O's standpoint, I'm no quarterback expert, but it seems to me that the times when he's a bit inaccurate and when the ball sails on him is when he's in the pocket, people in his face, and he ends up kind of throwing off his back foot. And I think some of that is due to his height. So talk to me, and I could be totally wrong, but talk to me a little bit about the type of offense you think Murray would have to go in.
Yeah, Steve, I think you do have good concerns there, and I'm certainly not dismissive of them at all. He was afforded a lot of time at Oklahoma, and that's a great offensive line he had. He was able to drift and move and get those throwing lanes that he needed so that he can see. I get it. I think that's a legit concern. So, with what I want to see from him at the next level is you need to adapt the scheme to that quarterback, just like every quarterback, right? They all have their strengths and weaknesses. And he's just limited. He has restrictions because of his height. So, you are going to want to keep him moving, and you're going to want to you can do a lot of stuff with your protections as well. You can take wider sets with your offensive line to create those throwing lanes. And actually, Bill Callahan does that really well in terms of what he's been able to do with those Redskins offensive linemen to take wider sets and open throwing lanes. I think that's just stuff like that you're going to have to do. But, I mean, his arm can challenge every level of the field. And I think that you just have to get that offensive line right, make sure that you're creating throwing lanes, whether that's moving him or taking wider sets, wider splits, and understanding how defenses are going to attack him. And I think that's one thing I noticed on his tape. I watched a ton of his tape. There's so many times that they're just sinking those middle linebackers into deep drops, and I'm going to be all up in the thing. I really am. I'm going to do a lot of stuff where I might even drop defensive tackles, just all kinds of different things to keep that middle of the field really, really blurred for him. And you just have to recognize that as an offensive coordinator and figure out how to combat that, right? Because, I mean, when you do that type of stuff, you make concessions elsewhere. So, that's the chess game of football. So it's just going to be about making sure there's throwing lanes, and you can create those within the offense.
I've seen the arm that you've seen. He's got a huge arm, particularly for his size. I don't know how he gets the velocity, on the ball when he's only 5'9" or 5'10" or whatever he is.
He's 5'10".
I don't know. I can't. I'm sorry. I can't. I don't know. That dude must have been standing on stilts or something. But anyway, from a Redskins perspective, knowing his limitations, my big concern, should he ever drop to the Redskins, is whether he's really the right type of quarterback for West Coast offense that Jay likes, which is in the pocket, quick release. Jay would like to have a mobile quarterback, but I think he'd rather have a big, tall, quick release pocket passer first.
Yeah, I don't think the Redskins are in play for Kyler. I mean, not unless they want to go to number one. So, I think the Redskins are 15 or something 17, somewhere
15.
There.
Yeah, 15.
15. Yeah, so I just don't feel like, I don't think he's in play. So I don't think that the Redskins are in. Yeah, they're not going to have the opportunity to take that risk. So it's to me, it's a bit of a moot point with Washington. For me, look, you guys aren't going to like this, but I feel like there's a legitimate belief from that the Redskins could be the team that likes Daniel Jones. Because if you look at the quarterbacks, what are the quarterbacks that the Redskins have invested in? Alex Smith, Kirk Cousins, and Case Keenum, and even Colt McCoy. I know there's a little soft spot for him in Washington. And those are the just marginally gifted quarterbacks. And no matter how you spin it, that's kind of what you get with Daniel Jones. Intangibles. I spent time with NFL scouts, and I put this in the article. I was at a game at NC State, and Duke was playing Virginia Tech the next night. The scouts were raving about going to see Daniel Jones play against Virginia Tech that night, 3 weeks after he fractured his clavicle. And I'm like, what are you guys? What are you talking about here? What's the big draw with Daniel Jones? And they're just like what they were talking, the stuff you would expect them to say. Oh, yeah, David Cutcliffe's a great quarterback coach. He's got size, he's got mobility, but his intangibles, man, this guy's a leader. This is the guy that they use the word Tim Tebow. They said this guy has Tim Tebow type intangibles. And I'm like, all right, well, can he play? I don't know. I don't know if they were so exciting about the skill set. So I get nervous that Washington, just based on looking at their history with quarterbacks, with Jay Gruden, that Daniel Jones is going to be appealing to them.
Daniel Jones is astoundingly mediocre, in my opinion.
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree with that.
Yeah. But the NFL hasn't stopped the NFL from taking a quarterback in the first round. sometimes it's so simple for us to see, but sometimes the league, they just fall in love with one or two things and believe that, hey, we can get the right scheme around him. We can coach him up. We can take it. This guy's willing to work. We can make it happen. And the league believes in that. That's that alpha mentality of the league where they can make anything out of anything, which is poor because there's a very bad track record of that being true. And we could all laugh about this in a few years. Dan Jones could be lighting up the league, but I don't see it.
I'm about to say look, I've been wrong on a few things, so I don't see it either. Steve clearly doesn't see it, but if we're wrong, hey, so be it. We know you have to leave soon, so we'll end it with one more question, just a general observation of what you've seen from receivers. We particularly want to know about. I want to know about Hakeem Butler, if you've seen him yet, and what you feel about him. And there's another question about Hollywood Brown. So, but just overall, your feelings about the receiving class, and in particular those two players.
Yeah, I like this receiver group. I think that I might have 10 or 15 in my top 100, maybe more. It's just it's a really deep group. I like some of the guys at the top. I'm in love with DK Metcalf. I'll tell you that right now. I know you didn't say specifically to talk about him, but I love him. I think that you can get a different.
Oh, yeah, him too.
Yeah, well, that's what I think about this class is that, receivers come in all shapes and sizes with skill sets, and I think you've got legit guys in every single role. If you want size on the boundary, if you want a big slot, if you want a quick, twitchy slot, if you want speed guys, you can get it all here. So for Hakeem Butler, he's such an interesting player. Dominant year here this past year with Iowa State. And, he's a true bully. He's big. He's physical. He's got a huge catch radius. For a guy that's as tall as he is, you're really kind of impressed with his fluidity in and out of breaks. I think the big knock on Hakeem is just some of the variance with his catches. I think he had like 13 drops. And if you watch him, they're just so frustrating because you see him do some acrobatic things, really contort his frame, really just snatch the ball with insane aggression. And then you're just like, dude, how'd you drop that? And so, I don't know where that comes from. I don't know how fixable that is. I think sometimes you just have to live with variance. But that's probably the one thing that pushes him down a little bit. And he's not, he ran great at the combine, but I don't necessarily see a guy that has that type of acceleration on tape, particularly out of his release. So I'm curious to see, I feel like there was a little bit of a discrepancy between his time speed and what we saw in the field. Hollywood Brown, oh man, he's 166 pounds with the Liz Frank injury, and I'm sorry my dogs have decided to join the podcast in here.
No, they're not getting picked up at all, so it's fine.
We like animals.
So Hollywood Brown, I hate that he's 166 pounds. I hate that he has a Liz Frank injury, which has been very difficult for players to come back from, especially a guy with his size and that his speed is everything, right? It's everything to his game because he is, he's going to struggle with contact. He's a little inconsistent in terms of competing for the football. But a lot of times he just doesn't have to do either one of those things because he's just so fast and can run around guys, and there's nobody near him when he's making a play on the football. So, I think if he's right physically, that he's an exciting player that can really be tough to defend. DK, man,
he's kind of the next. Deshaun Jackson to me.
Sure. Yeah.
Have you seen him run? Is he running yet?
He's not running. The report this week was that the boot came off, and he's on track for like the next 3 months. So, the reality is just it's not a good success rate to come back from those Frank. So, I'm rooting for him. I hope it does.
Does that drop him?
Yeah, to me it does.
Does that drop him into round 2?
Yeah. I mean, you need that return. If you're going to take a guy in the first round, you don't need to have those types of questions, So, to me, that's what the NFL is weird, right? They might take him. I mean, they took Philip Dorsett, they took John Ross in the top 10. So, who knows, right? But I just feel like it should drop him out of the first round. It's probably the best way to answer that.
Okay. Well, Joe, we definitely appreciate you coming on with us. We understand that you have I believe you are. You have a wedding coming up, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, the weekend after the draft, the Saturday after the draft. Well, not like the following one. It's May 4th is the wedding. Yeah, getting married. Okay. Pretty excited about that as well.
Congratulations.
Hey, congratulations, man. That's perfect timing because like as soon as the draft is over, the brunt of your work, I'm assuming, is done. So that's the perfect time to have a wedding.
And it sets myself up to be able to every year after the weekend after the wedding, it's anniversary time. Kind of a nice little natural getaway and reflect on the year. So it lines well with my career.
You made a good choice there because I accidentally got married on the week that became the draft week now. So.
Oh my God. My God, you gotta be aware of that.
Mine was Earth Day, and it was an accident.
I'm sure Alex doesn't mind, man. He loves.
No, I don't mind.
All right, but look, before we go ahead and plug anything that you have to plug, man. We appreciate you coming on. So, where can they find you on Twitter? What's the things that you got going on that keeps you busy?
Yeah, so the spot on Twitter is at the Joe Marino. All of my written work is at draftnetwork.com, and I put 5 written articles a week, and really right now it's grinding out these scouting reports. So just trying to put the finishing touches on getting as many guys evaluated as I can and getting up good reports. So that's all on the prospect rankings and database on the website. And then I do host 2 daily podcasts. The Locked On Bills podcast. So if you are a Bills fan, if you're listening to this podcast, you might not be, but if you're interested in the Bills, Locked On Bills, as well as the Draft Dudes podcast with Kyle Krafts, where we talk drafts 365 days a year. So that's the spots to find my stuff. Thanks for having me on to talk about it.
Hey, not a problem, man. We appreciate you coming on. Go ahead and spend that prep time and planning time with your wife, man.
Thanks for making time.
Yes, thanks.
All right.
And we're back. That was Mr. Joe Marino. Again, draftnetwork.com, Locked On Bills, Draft Dudes podcast. Super awesome dude. What'd you guys take away? What were the big picture headlines from this?
Well, first I want to give Jamal credit, man. He was able to he's getting us a bunch of interviews lately, and this is just the first of a couple. So Jamal, great job on all that effort.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you kind of took charge of this one, so that was great.
Thank you. Joe's like I said, I've known him all for about 2 seconds, to be honest with you, but I followed his work for a good amount of time, being that I am a fan of the Draft Network. He was nice enough to join with us. Hopefully we can have him on for future shows as well, post-draft, obviously, and things like that. But it was pretty good. I'm sure everybody else had the same sentiments. We wish we just had more time. Obviously he has bigger things to worry about around this time, obviously, and congratulations to him again. But really good guy.
Yeah, he said he was getting married, Sean. Which I would argue maybe don't do it, but hopefully it'll work out for him. No, but anyway, from a substantive football standpoint, he's on the Kyler Murray train to a certain extent, which, I'm just not, and I get it. But what was most disturbing to me, this is what I wanted to start with.
Oh, yeah, I know where you're going.
Daniel Jones, he didn't come flat out and predict it, but he came close to saying the Redskins are probably going to overdraft Daniel Jones. Now, I've watched a lot of Daniel Jones film. The dude is mediocre and everything, not great at anything. I think it would be another – and Joe said it on the interview. He said the Redskins have a history of drafting mediocre quarterbacks, and they absolutely do. And I think he would just be another one. The move for the Redskins would be trade up a few spots and get Haskins. I'm much higher on Haskins than Joe was.
Yeah. I'm higher on Locke than I am on Jones at this point.
Yeah. Locke I don't think is worthy of 15, but
No. But I'm higher on him than Jones. And I see what people are saying with Locke, how you could maybe develop him.
Oh, absolutely.
I just don't think the Redskins have the time for it. Yeah.
Just to butt in right quick. It's kind of crazy because Joe's not necessarily saying we're going to draft Daniel Jones, but he feels like if anybody, we will get him and possibly overdraft in terms of position, the position in which we draft him. But the week before, we have Steve Shoup on, and he tells us the one quarterback that you don't want to overdraft on is Daniel Jones. And it's just incredible because it sounds like if all the people that we're weary of, the Redskins may see something that we don't, and we'll be pretty frustrated and hope he just doesn't play.
At some level, I would be okay with Daniel Jones. If it's like a third-round pick, sure.
Yeah, mid-round. Yeah.
But if they trade down in round 1 a few spots and then draft him in the first round, that would be the most Redskins thing ever, number one. But it would just be
How often do Duke quarterbacks get picked that high in the draft?
The Bears picked one, 2 years ago?
Listen, here's what I have some notes about Jones, okay? First of all, 59.9% completion percentage at Duke. He was a 3-year starter and didn't get better statistically in those 3 years. He's got decent footwork, decent arm strength. He's going to have like an average NFL arm. I saw he missed a lot of balls deep, underthrew a lot. Mm-hmm. He was in a pass-heavy offense, so that's good. He was exclusively out of the shotgun. He had a lot of yak yards downfield. Duke wasn't playing great teams, and a lot of busted coverages downfield. He's inconsistent. He holds the ball way too long. To his credit, he had horrible wide receivers, terrible.
Duke isn't a football school, so you got to remember that.
It's barely a basketball school based on last night's game, but that's another
Duke burn.
Yeah. So I just think he's, to me, Daniel Jones. He is okay in everything. He's not going to embarrass you. He's also never going to become a franchise quarterback. Daniel Jones will not become a franchise quarterback. And so if we waste time and draft him in the first round, I think that'd be a huge mistake.
I agree.
Looks like New York is scouting. Looks like they hosted him
Say
yesterday.
What?
Looks like New York, the Giants hosted him.
Yeah, they love him too because the whole Manning connection.
Listen, I mean, the Giants are also heavy favorites of mediocre quarterbacks.
Right?
Isn't that the story of Eli's career? I mean, Eli's had his moments where he's been MVP caliber, but that's like 10% of the time, and then the other 90% he's Eli.
Yeah.
Right.
It is kind of funny to think about. The Giants and the Redskins probably have very similar quarterback histories. And for two teams that are maybe a year or two apart age-wise, there's a lot of eras of just very not having good quarterbacks and then a lot of very average quarterbacks who just play for a long
Eli
time.
has 2 Super Bowl rings, and the Redskins don't.
Yeah. Yeah, but he got those off the defense.
No. One of those years it was an MVP season. One of those years, Eli's very responsible for it.
I think it's more the defense and Tom Coughlin.
Hey, you don't beat the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl without.
Yeah, I mean, Eli's not. Eli's not average. Eli is above average. I just don't think he's Hall of Fame level good or anything like his brother. But he's had. When I say he has moments, he's had like MVP level moments, in my opinion. He's just had a lot more where he's kind of an above average starter. That's my point.
Yeah, I think he's one of the best quarterbacks with major flaws in his game that are really obvious when you watch. But he's really good still and finds a way to make it happen.
Also, lucky to have a lot of talent around him most of his career.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That's fair.
Yes.
But it's crazy because he still finds a way to lead the league in interceptions on more than one occasion.
And I think sacks, too, last year, didn't he?
I think so.
Let me ask you guys this, because I'm tired of talking about the Giants. If we had our druthers, is druthers a word that you guys use? Probably not.
Yes.
Okay, if you
I have no freaking clue what that word means, but continue. I may catch on.
Okay, if you had your druthers, what quarterback from the 2019 draft class would you wish the Redskins could draft?
From this draft class?
Assuming all things are being equal, let's not pretend we're doing an RG3 trade up. If one of these quarterbacks is in the Redskins' grasp, who would your number one be?
Okay. Alex, go ahead if you're ready.
I think my pick would be Haskins. I think he's the safest bet, and he's clearly, if you listen to them all getting interviewed, he's clearly the smartest of them all. And I always put QB intelligence as a number one thing.
So for me, it's actually a little bit of strategical thinking involved. If we can get any quarterback from our list or our choice, and people may scorn me for this, but I would just say Ryan Finley. Reason being, he's a mid-round quarterback. He will be serviceable. There's no for me personally, I like him for his value and where he's worth. You don't have to reach for the first round for him. You don't have to go in the second round. Well, maybe the second round, but that'll be like a late second round. But you have 2 third rounds to make the decision for him. Prior to selecting him, you can spend the opportunity to get top offensive talent and maybe even a guard to help make sure that he's in the best position to be successful. He can I think he can make all the throws in the NFL that you need. He has the touch to make more precise throws on the hash, outside the hashes and things like that. So I personally am a fan of Ryan Finley for where he is projected to be drafted. And if you can get the help prior to selecting him, which I believe they can, especially on the perimeter, then yes, that's what you do. And my first choice for
that's
that
a good
reason
pick too.
Would be Ryan Finley.
I like Finley a lot. He does remind me a lot of Kirk.
You did say that. Yep, I remember you told me.
Yeah, so I like, and I meant that in a good way, not in the way that most people just hate Kirk Cousins.
Okay, I'll save mine. Sean, what do you think?
I like Jamal's answer, but I'm gonna Doc Walker this one and say it doesn't matter. Who cares? No one knows. We just have to get someone and make them good and win all the games, right? That's the appropriate answer.
That's definitely pro Doc.
Yeah, I like Alex's answer too. Haskins, yeah, Ohio State sounds much better to come from like a real football school than someone like Daniel Jones. Everyone we've said so far, I don't know, Locke, Haskins, Finley, they're all good. I'd probably take anyone.
For me, number one, if Dwayne Haskins is available at 15, I think you run to the podium. I don't care what other needs we have. I don't care about any of it.
Quarterbacks always need one if you don't have one.
If he's there at like 13 or something, I think I ought to consider trading up for him. A little bit. I'm not talking about people, throwing away 3 first-round draft picks. I'm saying if you can move up 2 or 3 spots and grab him, I would probably do it. I would throw another name out there, absent Haskins. For me, it's Jarrett Stidham from Auburn. Stidham, career 64% completion percentage. He regressed a little bit statistically last year. I think Auburn's offense limited him. Certainly, Auburn's offense is very simplistic. It's in no way a pro-style offense, but he's got the arm. He's got pretty good arm strength. I think there's a whole group of these quarterbacks this year. You're talking about Greer, Jones, Finley, and there's others here that all kind of are mediocre NFL arms. Well, Stidham, I think, is
there's a lot of guys who I think will be here for 10 years or be in the NFL for 10 years as backups.
Yeah, I mean, to me,
that's what this class is.
There's 3 guys that have elite arms, and that's Haskins, Murray, and Locke in that order. But I think Jarrett Stidham is the next guy down in terms of arm, and so if you could grab him in the 3rd or 4th round, whereas wherein Joel was saying Finley, I'd say Stidham and do the same thing. Build, get some offensive talent in rounds 1 and 2, and then grab the quarterback. Only for me, it would be Stidham.
Right. So, now, by the way, that's the plan I think they should go with. I agree with both of you guys there. I just don't think they're going to do it.
Jump on it.
Yeah.
So 2 things. I'd like to ask you all. The first question, and it's not related to another. It's just the fact that they popped in my head at the same time. But 2 questions. The first one is, how do you guys feel about Josh Rosen the trade now in terms of as time moves on, it's starting to wear off in terms of the initial excitement about him. How do you feel about the potential of trading for Josh Rosen now? And the second question that I had was, what were your thoughts on Joe's comments about a Taysom Hill type of talent?
Well, first of all, in terms of Rosen, I'd do it in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. I like Josh Rosen. I think he's got a little bit of a bad rap because of what happened last year in Arizona. But if you really watch what happened to Rosen last year, a lot of this was horrible play calling, horrible play design. They had no talent around him, had a terrible offensive line. The offensive coordinator got fired halfway through the season, and installed a new offense. Halfway through the season on this guy. If you watch his UCLA film, Rosen was pro-ready at UCLA, and I think the Cardinals ruined him to a certain extent. So I think if you get him in a good system, I think Rosen is the classic pocket, quick release, drop back passer. Yes, he's got a bit of an attitude problem. He's kind of a jerk, but he's not in the first and he's not going to be the last. So I think if you got him with a good quarterback coach, and like it or not, folks, Jay is considered a quarterback guru. Whether or not that's true, who knows? I would trade for him in a split second. I'm still not convinced the Cardinals are going to actually do it, but that's another story. So the answer to your question is I would do Rosen in a second. What was the second half of it, Jamal?
I actually got the players mixed up. I was thinking about the next Taysom Hill. How do you feel about a Taysom Hill type of talent? I mentioned Jordan Ta'amu, but like a Taysom Hill type of talent on our
First
roster.
of all, I haven't watched Ta'amu yet. I'll get to him this week. But in general, I mean, I get it. I'm not sure the Redskins need to do it because I think the Redskins need to focus on core competency before they do stuff like bring gadget players like Taysom Hill in, whereas the Saints coaching staff and the roster is more developed. So I don't know if we would use a Taysom Hill type player as effectively as the Saints did.
I would actually say it's even more useful when your offense is struggling to have one guy who can be another wrinkle. Now you look at Hill's numbers. Really, you're talking about, hey, let's go find a guy who can get us 2 first downs a game, basically, through whatever unique thing he does. And I think there are guys here, the guy from Penn State and the guy from Buffalo, both, to me, look like guys who could be quarterbacks that line up at tight end, lined up at fullback, line up at slot receiver, line them up as a quarterback just once or twice just to throw everything off. They both have that athletic ability. And the kid from Buffalo, man, his arm, he doesn't have the most accurate arm, but just his size, I think he'd be scary to see with the football running down at you.
You're talking about Tyree Jackson, who's the kid from Buffalo.
Yeah, Jackson, thank you.
I think with Tyree, it's more just of a coaching thing with him because he does have the arm.
That's true, too.
He's got – part of it is he's so huge, long, and gangly that his motion is not compact, which you want in quarterbacks to have a quick, compact motion. That's like – look at Marino. And Jackson is so big and so long that it's hard for him to do it. So I think if he worked with a good – and apparently he's been working with the quarterback guru this offseason, which should help him. Because he looked – I'll say this. He looked a lot better in shorts at the combine in the throwing drills than if you watch his tape. And so I think he's improved a little bit.
Yeah.
I like Jackson.
But everyone always says that at his height, you can never be a pro quarterback because it's the inverse of Kyler Murray. No one's ever succeeded.
I'd rather have a taller one than a shorter one if I had to pick.
Oh, I would too. But I'm just saying, 6'6" and over, everyone always starts flagging that.
Historically, it's a risk.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that he does. Excuse me. When I say he, I'm speaking of Marino. He specializes or focuses on the Bills per se, given that he talks about them for a living, essentially. But I think it's interesting that he actually realized off the gates that he doesn't even think Murray would be a good fit here.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've seen a few people say.
I said it.
But you would have to imagine, and you would have to imagine that for Murray to be here, you would have to expect Jay Gruden to, adjust his scheme to fit Kyler Murray's needs. And I don't even think, based on what we've seen over 5 years now, that I don't even think we're confident enough to say that he can do that.
Jay's not going to.
So why would they even draft?
Jay's not going to do it.
Yeah, he's not going to do it.
I mean,
he's going to force Kyler Murray to change, and I don't think that's going to happen.
I mean, what I said to Joe was that I think Murray needs to be in a Seattle-type offense. It's a running-based offense, but Russell Wilson does not stay in the pocket much. Russell Wilson rolls out a lot. He scrambles a lot. And I think part of that, frankly, hurts his passing. He kind of cuts off half the field. I don't think Kyler Murray is the type that's going to be a Jay Gruden West Coast offense dude where he's going to stand there and fire. Now, Murray does read the field well. He did at Oklahoma. But, I mean, he had the best offensive line in the NCAA. And even then, when people got in his face, I mean, the height comes into play. So I think you need to have an offensive system where the team, like Jamal said, is willing to build and focus an entire scheme around what Kyler Murray does, and that is not the Redskins in 2019.
No, and it doesn't make sense to do it given Jay's contract situation to try and get somebody like that. I think, and I mean, I do think Gruden's okay at adjusting his scheme to the quarterback. We've seen him do it before. I just don't
like that.
I mean,
a big jump though. That's a big jump.
Yeah, there's minor changes compared to being consistent in the change. Like you have to be consistently different in terms of how you approach a game. compared to like a Josh Johnson, where he does have familiarity with that system from the get-go. So, like, for him, he can implement a little bit more read option, but at the same time, that's not the makeup of the offense. It's still
and Josh Johnson's kind of the example I'd use, though, where we didn't use any pistol for the most part with, Alex Smith and Colt McCoy. Johnson comes in, and it was all pistol all the time.
Though, okay? I mean, like for Robert Griffin, they tried to basically force Robert Griffin into Jay's system, and that's when it all went kaflooey.
Right.
Yeah.
But that was also Robert Griffin being Robert Griffin.
That, but I'm saying
we
didn't implement Seattle's offense like Mike Shanahan did.
Right.
Jay wanted to use Griffin in Jay's offense, and that's when it really went badly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fair point. All right, well, anything else about Joe and the interview before we move on to other topics? Any other
you talked about wide receivers.
Yeah, what'd you think about the Hollywood Brown?
He kind of shared my concerns. Is you just don't know about the Liz Frank injury. I just would not spend a first-round draft pick on Brown when we've literally not seen him run at all. And this Liz Frank thing, Liz is a naughty, naughty mistress,
We've seen it before, man.
We've seen it on this team before.
Yeah.
So, the second, third round, to gamble, but not in the first round.
I was just about to ask. Yeah, I was just about to ask. So he said that it may be a potential that he slips because of that Liz Frank injury, which makes a lot of sense. So in the second or third round, what do you guys think in terms of percent chance that the Redskins may look towards him and drafting him? Because at this point, it is true. Like for some incredible reason, they have a history of drafting injured players, so it's not out of the realm.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is the Redskins have a history of this? They drafted Jordan Reed, knowing he's got an injury history. For example,
the Redskins love drafting guys who have injury history. Frankly,
history.
Fabian Moreau.
I mean,
he came out with an injury, and they still took a chance with him.
Even Geist, to an extent, he had an ACL injury before.
So they definitely need.
That dude's too small. He's tiny.
He's Deshaun Jackson. He's the living embodiment of Deshaun Jackson to me. He may be smaller than Jackson. You're right, Sean.
Deshaun is like 180 or maybe 170, and this man is like barely pushing 165.
Yeah, he's tiny. He's wee.
I do agree with what Joe said that there's probably 10 really good receivers in this draft, and the Redskins should be able to come away with somebody in the first 3 rounds who can contribute.
I'm afraid that Jay Gruden has an abnormal fascination with Trey Quinn. I think it's like, we've gone from – Jay seems to obsess over players. We've gone from Ryan Grant being his son to Trey Quinn as his other son now. And I think the Redskins – I like Trey, fine. He showed something at least in preseason. He did well in college, blah, blah, blah. But – are we really – he doesn't scare anybody. Are they really going to rely on Trey Quinn to be the starting slot receiver? I think that'd be idiotic.
I don't know about – I don't know if they're going to have a choice. That's the real problem. If you draft a guy like – but he's not naturally a slot guy. Isn't he more of a Z guy?
I think he's fast enough where he could do both.
Sure. A lot of guys can do both of those.
I think he kind of adapt. Yeah, would he be more, in the outside, run the deep post, deep fly route? Sure, but
right, clear.
But given who
everything,
Paul Richardson is, I think if you drafted Hollywood, they could make it work.
Yeah, maybe. I think. See, I don't. I've never bought this whole Richardson's that guy kind of. To me, he's more of a just balanced. He can do a little bit of everything kind of receiver. But
if you watch him,
I know that's how they sell it. But.
That's what he did in Seattle. Okay, they always used him as a Z receiver. I wasn't sold on Paul Richardson in the first place, but they're stuck with him because of his contract.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of other wide receivers in this draft who I'd rather go with that aren't suffering some kind of injury.
I'm not afraid of DK Metcalf. I know a lot of people are. What do you think?
Look, I'm a fan of DK because of the type of player that he is. Like, he's a physical player, so I would never take that away, or I would never be like, I don't want him. I just know there's a lot of boom or bust potential with him. At 15 on the dot, I don't think I would take him. If you're talking about a trade back to acquire more assets and you're looking at like mid-20s, all right,
sure,
take another first round receiver. That's cool. Hopefully this one hits. But it just depends on how it plays out. I mean,
you just look at his physicality, and he has all the potential to be a star number one. You just got to get the route tree thing down and some of the other stuff down.
He improved on his 3-cone drill at his pro day. His awful
couldn't have gotten much worse.
From a 7.3 to a 7.2.
Is it an improvement?
Yes.
Yeah, no, it is. I gave him credit. I said, "Hey, congratulations, man! You improved your time."
And he didn't fall. I mean, the guy is not going to be. Look, he's a vertical guy. He's going to be a vertical guy. For sure.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the Redskins initially drafted him at 15. I'm just saying I'm not afraid of him, and he doesn't have the collegiate history of performance to suggest that he's worth a top first-round draft pick. No. But I wouldn't be afraid to draft him at some point.
Yeah. See, I think there's a lot of guys. None of them are probably worth the 15 at wide receiver. None of those top guys. But late first, early second, I think you could get a really good receiver in the second round this year.
The safer bet, probably.
Yeah, Harry is good too. Yeah, I like Harry.
Yeah, I kind of have a thing for Campbell out of Ohio State. I think
Parrish Campbell.
Yeah.
Even what's his name? AJ Brown, I think. His Metcalf's teammate. Like a lot of people. People are so harped up on Metcalf, and they forget that they have a receiver on there who is probably a more polished receiver coming out of the draft. Than Metcalf is. Well, I think there's like 4 or 5 receivers that's more polished than Metcalf coming out of the draft. That will probably be a safe pick.
Debo Samuel's safe pick.
Yes.
Yeah.
And who's the kid from Georgia that really had a good time?
Ridley.
Yeah.
Ridley, yeah.
Riley Ridley, I think that's his name.
Yeah. I don't know. Alliteration names, trouble.
It's tough.
Just for no other reason than language. That's why Sean likes him.
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Let's roll.
He sat down with J.P. Finley, Bruce, and a couple others, and did normal Bruce speak. I don't even know if it's even.
They're doing the thing in Arizona, the
owners' meetings,
and stuff like that.
It's owners' meetings, and so Bruce historically sits down with some beat writers at the owners' meeting every year, and he did so this year too. He said absolutely nothing of interest. To me, it's not even worth reading the transcript. He's like the worst type of politician. Who literally says absolutely nothing ever. I think from a macro perspective, it's we may hate it, but it's still the Bruce Allen show. I don't think he's cares whatsoever about what the fans think. I think he thinks he's doing a good job, and I think at some point he's probably going to run off Kyle Smith. Because he has a history of running off people that challenge his competence when it comes to football. So I hate to say it, but I don't know. I just get the sense of that. But
and if you believe the rumors from 106.7, Kyle Smith is in the anti-Bruce faction now.
So let's break that down. Since some people may not know exactly entirely what's going on. I was able to catch up this morning, but what is all the ruckus about going on with 106.7?
Okay, so 2 weeks ago they had that story, and we don't need to hash it too much, that Jay's on the outs. Yeah, the Sports Junkies had a rumor that Jay's on the outs. He's not informed about any of the free agency moves. The Redskins have said that's not true, blah, 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 blah. But this week, I think it was actually even, Friday, the new rumor is that there's basically 2 factions now at Redskins Park, and it's Jay Gruden and Kyle Smith on one side, Doug Williams, Bruce Allen, and who's the last guy? The money guy.
Eric
Schaefer. Schaefer, yeah. Schaefer's on the other.
Can I bash our fans and listeners for a minute, or is that not allowed?
Yeah, okay. Go for it. I love bashing listeners.
What are you guys thinking? Now, it's amazing to me that all of a sudden, because Chris Russell says something, and because the sports junkies who, are not Adam Schefter level insiders say something negative about the front office, all of a sudden you guys are on board with saying, oh, no, it can't be true. Jay's not on the outs, and, this is a total lie, and Chris Russell needs to go, leave his job and move, and why would you ever believe Bickle with sports junkies? Do you guys even think about what you type? Ever? Do you guys even pay attention to the words that are coming out of your mouth and off your fingers?
Steve.
It's like I'm the only one that's paid attention to the Redskins over the past 20 years. Okay? Is it surprise anyone at all that there's dysfunction in the front office? And first of all, let me say that we've kind of heard off the record sort of similar stuff. Okay? We won't get into all that, but we've heard this kind of too. That Jay is a bit detached. And Jay is a bit disinterested this year. So it doesn't surprise me. But listen, the first thing Jay said in his post-year press conference when they asked him what could improve, he said front office coach communications, okay? And now because Chris Russell says it, all of a sudden you guys out there are denying it and, it can't be true. And it amazes me. You just absolutely can't win something with this fan base.
No.
And now everybody's trying to show off.
Well, I think that part of it, when you're on social media, it gets tricky. You can't really gauge the full fan base. It's whoever's pissed off is going to talk the loudest. And so when Chris Russell says something, there's people who don't like Russell. There's a lot more people who don't like Russell than do, and they're going to be very vocal. Whatever he says is wrong. Just like the anti-Bruce Allen fan club, which is, I would consider myself in that fan club, by the way. Anytime Bruce Allen says something, well, he's lying. He's a lying liar, so whatever he says is a lie. Same with Jay Gruden. There's people who just passionately hate him, and they're going to get vocal anytime Jay Gruden says something. So I think that's kind of what you're seeing on social media. I don't, I think if you did a poll, I'm guessing a lot of people don't trust the front office
have to do a poll
more. Yeah,
maybe.
Who? I would say the poll should be, whose side are you on, Team Gruden or Team Bruce Allen? You can't pick another.
Alex, I'm sorry, not Alex, but Steve, what is going on with the polls that you used to make? We don't have any polls to discuss. This would have been a perfect one.
Forgive me with the polls. Okay, here's the deal with the polls. The poll.
Sorry, we've been busy with other things.
We have been busy with other things, and that's a big part of it. But the polls it's harder than you guys think to come up with a decent poll question every week. And I think we kind of ran out of steam with it the end of last year. We were really kind of struggling every week to come up with something interesting. And so we will do the polls, and it's my fault I haven't done one in the past couple of weeks. We will get back to them, but it may not be every week. It's,
I have no fear. I am here. I'll go ahead and I'll put my brain
figure
to
out
work.
some polls.
I'll put my brain to work, and we will have some polls.
We'll do some polls. We'll start doing some. Okay, fine. Jamal
just don't
wants
start
polls.
smoking out the ears.
I'll contribute to this poll thing, Steve.
Okay, Jamal wants polls. We'll do polls. But I think that, and this is getting away from sports a little bit, but I think social media is not an accurate reflection of reality, and it's not an accurate reflection of society, and that's part of the problem.
You don't say, Steve.
That's not news?
That's insane. What do you mean, bro?
I mean, personally, I think obviously Sean do, but I agree. It's so basically it's a big bubble. Like social media is a large bubble with millions and millions of people. However, in reality, although a lot of things are true, you can gain a lot of insight on social media. But when it comes to reality of situations, because it's so micro on social media, when you understand the bigger thing out there, and this is pertaining to the Redskins, when you understand that so many people that you ran in contact with on Twitter, per se, since this is what our main social media platform, you realize so many people hate Bruce. You realize so many people hate the Redskins right now because of the fact that they're not winning, and you hate how they operate. And then in reality, you understand it's really not that big a deal to the larger group of people. And you understand that, and it boggles your mind that there's people out there, in terms of social media, when you're on Twitter, it boggles your mind that there's people out there who's like, they don't see an issue with how the Redskins are operating.
Yeah, it's solely because of who said it. Chris Russell is, first of all, I think Chris Russell, he said some dumb things. I think he's intentionally trolled and antagonized the fan base at times. And
personally, I don't believe him, but that's neither here nor there.
I mean, but Chris is not a monster, But I mean, it's like maybe he is a monster. No, I mean, and he's got kids with special needs and stuff, so I'm not going to bash
I know.
Chris Russell, but I just don't understand why people had such a violent reaction to this story. Why on earth would you believe that this couldn't happen?
Yeah, and I agree. I think the people are just so fed up with the super fans. They're just so fed up with negativity that they'll fight any negative report that comes out. For example, the Junkies report, the initial one 2 weeks ago, when they talk about Jay Gruden, did you not really believe that he's frustrated? Did you not really believe that there's a potential that he found out through text message? Now, the way they relayed the message may have been off, but they have a track record of when they broke news, it was accurate. Right. There was no falsehood about what they said. However, it could have been taken a different way or interpreted a different way, because there's a few ways you can interpret a text message or a phone call without clarifying. But they broke the Alex Smith story in December about his multiple surgeries and him not being completely healthy, and people took that and ran with it. But when it came to negativity, something that, to this extent, the first thing they do is the Junkies, they're on the radio. They don't do this stuff. They do.
And listen, I mean, we know from doing this show, from the tidbits that we hear off the record from people and whatnot, that Junkies are hearing 50 times the amount of stuff that we hear. Okay, they are getting insider news. Because if we get stuff every once in a while, they for sure are. I don't know why. Yeah, no, he's not. They're not Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport. But Jamal is absolutely right. I mean, they do break stories sometimes. No, they're not beat writers. But it's not that far-fetched to think that somebody came to the Sports Junkies and said, "This is what Jay Gruden's feeling." They
have 25 years in the game.
Right.
They're 25 years, and they're a local. They're a local host group of guys. They have plugs in Maryland. They have plugs with the Washington Redskins. They've been around that long, and people are going to think because they're on the radio they don't have credibility. Yes, they do. They do.
Right.
There's a difference between his opinions and reports. That report, what they said 2 weeks ago was a report. So
I think you don't even need to listen to what they're saying to look at how Jay Gruden's been acting. Just watch him in interviews.
Did you guys see the picture of the coaches?
Yeah.
Did you see this, Sean?
Yeah.
The picture of the coaches at the
owners meeting.
It looked like Jay Gruden wanted to die. It really did. It looked like either he had the world's worst hangover, or he just absolutely wanted to be at Disney World or something.
Well, if it was the world's worst hangover, he'd be pulling a Sean McVay and not even be in the photo.
I mean, I've never had a hangover, so I'll take your word for it.
You don't get out of bed if you have a bad one.
It was
Look, there's a couple reasons why I wasn't on this show before, and that was one of them.
I mean, only hangovers I get is when I drink too many Sunkist, But the picture was so bad that they had to ask him about it at the comments, and he said that. For those wondering, Jay said that the sun was right in his eyes, and his intent was to look up and smile right when the cameraman was about to take the photo, and the cameraman just took the photo without giving him a warning.
Without saying 3, 2, 1. Yeah. Cheese!
Yeah. So that's why it looked like he was miserable and looked like he wanted to die.
Yeah.
This is still funny.
Whatever you say.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
that's why sunglasses were invented too. Let's also
wear your sunglasses.
Am I the only one that's never had a hangover?
Points.
I guess so.
Yes.
Possibly.
Of this group.
Group. Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
I may just go get some liquor now.
I would venture to say on our network, in the history of everyone who's ever been on this show or any other show, yes.
I don't know. Robbie Duncan isn't a big drinker either.
That's true. He's not.
Robbie was on our show.
That's true. That's a good point. Well, anyway, speaking of bad pictures, I'm surprised to hear you guys spent so much time talking about quarterbacks when we clearly have Uncle Rico on our team and roster right now. I mean, I don't know what you guys are talking about. This dude's looking fresh. He's looking fit. He's looking good. If you don't know what I'm talking about, people, we're talking about a picture of Keenum. What is it, at a charity golf thing, Alex?
Yeah, charity golf thing in the middle of Texas, and I mean middle of Texas. Abilene, Texas.
Abilene
God.
is 100 miles from anywhere. Okay,
Right.
You have to make an effort to go to Abilene. You can't just stumble on Abilene.
I don't think you can fly there. I think you'd have to fly to somewhere like Waco or Dallas and drive for like 5 hours.
No, they have an airport. They do have an airport.
Oh, they do? Okay.
But listen, if you guys haven't seen this photo, I mean, yeah,
it's a great photo.
Either he just came from the set of a 70s porno movie.
Exactly.
I
Well,
think
it's all vintage Redskins gear. He's wearing all like vintage 1970s Redskins visors. He's got the same polo shirt that I think Joe Gibbs wore in 1980.
And the pants,
with
man.
like
Good heavens, the pants.
back when the logos had to have a white outline on the patch because they couldn't do the fine cutting on the logo yet. So it was just a white outline. And I don't know where he got those pants.
The pants are red and white striped bell-bottom pants.
Look, you never know.
Yeah.
Tina may be a time traveler, and we don't have that.
Let's also say those pants are a little tight for what I would like to wear in my life.
I don't know if he was making a joke out of this or if this was legit, and he just has horrible style. And I'm the world's worst style, okay? If I notice something's bad, it's really bad because I pay no attention to style at all, as you guys know.
Yes. See, I almost think this falls in the so bad it's good category of, like, if you're going to go all out, go all out.
That's why I kind of think maybe he did this intentionally.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's where style is now. It's like it's almost got to be so aggressively bad that it's like got cool.
Jamal, would you wear an outfit like this, Jamal, in any way, shape, or form ever?
Would I? I would not.
Yeah. Would anybody here wear red and white striped bell-bottom pants?
I probably would. Not bell-bottom. Not bell-bottom, but like if they were just like funky-looking pants. I wore tie-dye pants in college all the time.
I did not wear tie-dye pants in college.
Well, you didn't go to a place where you had a uniform in college.
Actually, you kind of did. It was just like sort of like one tone.
That's not tie-dye. That's not tie-dye. Sean, that's not tie-dye. No, but anyway, I mean, it's a great photo. Look it up, enjoy it, live it. I recommend printing it up and making a poster out of it.
Yeah. It makes me like him more as a quarterback. I'll say that.
And he looks like he's not.
Quarterbacks
He looks
need
like
personality.
he's not in shape at all. By the way, he looks kind of like he has a beer gut in this photo too.
It looks like Jay Gruden.
He does. Yeah.
I had to do a double check
in the profile photo. It's not as bad. If you look at the one where he's standing sideways.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
This is clearly a very bad shot, which is what happened to Jay this weekend, too. So it's perfect that they look like each other. All right. Beautiful. Anything else? Any final thoughts you want to throw out there? Redskins, Joe Marino, anything you want to get off your chest?
Go microwave you some breakfast, Sean. Don't grill it. Don't grill or cook it. Microwave it. You could be done in 5 minutes.
Have a Hot Pocket. That's the only acceptable breakfast.
Everybody who listens to this, say a prayer for Steve when you hear everything about food.
Yeah,
I've got kids too. Remember that.
Yeah. Well, see, your kids should be the ones microwaving
we eat
things.
out a lot.
You're in an area that's good to
we
do.
Eat out a lot.
By the way,
yeah, I won't lie.
Where you are in Texas has a lot of good food to eat out at.
Takeout.
Yeah.
You know what? They probably love that. All right. Well, we'll cut it off there. This has been the Hog Sty. As always, another beautiful episode. Thanks for being with us, as you always are. We will be back with you guys in a week's time for the next episode. We have another interview queued up next week.
Possibly.
Yes,
we do.
Possibly.
Yeah,
Possibly.
So,
fingers crossed.
Don't hold us to it, but
it might just be Peyton Manning.
It might just be. There you go. All right. Well, cool. We'll see y'all next week right here on the Hog Sty. Thanks. We'll see you then.